The Baltimore Ravens officially will take on the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. We instantly react to the matchup and so much more coming up next here on this live instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, coming to you from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here and making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every single day. We are free and available all podcasting platforms. That includes over in video form on YouTube and audio form wherever you get your shows. 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, plus bonus content like these shows here today. We also do live shows, especially in these playoffs. It's been exciting. The Ravens in the AFC Championship game, and now we officially know who they're facing. It is the Kansas City Chiefs. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn jobs to find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL, LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in on this Sunday night. It was a crazy game between Kansas City and Buffalo. Seemed like Buffalo wanted to win and Kansas City wanted to win. And all of a sudden, it felt like neither team wanted to win the game and had a very Blair Walsh-esque or Billy Cundiff-esque. I know I don't want to say that, but I said it. Really bad moment for Tyler Bass as he misses that field goal wide right, and Kansas City takes it home. So we're going to be talking about the matchup. We'll go through Kansas City, their players, how they've fared so far in the playoffs, and of course, look back at the regular season and how Baltimore matches up, hat on hat perspective on that, and talk about the atmosphere that Baltimore's going to have for a game like this, especially with the history between Kansas City and Baltimore, and of course, Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube as well. Follow along in audio form. We're actually almost, I think at the time of this recording, 15 or so subscribers away on YouTube from 6,000, which is so incredible to me. You know, we started this off on video form a couple years ago. Audio form was about 4 or 5 years ago. We've been grinding ever since here, 5 days a week of Locked On Ravens, and we've added this bonus content recently. It's been really exciting, and these are the moments you work for, right? These are the moments as you kind of get ready and figure out how this team actually is going to be. Baltimore has, I think, a really solid opportunity against the Kansas City team that doesn't necessarily look like Kansas City. So we're going to be talking about that as the show goes on here. We got a lot of people in the chat too. I see Robot Wrestler. I think this is James who says Kev, Andrews, likely Kelsey. One man leaves, the best tight end in the league. Yeah, those three guys going to be really, really exciting here. David Garcia checking in as always. We got Casey Budden saying, I'm not worried, to be honest. Chiefs beat a depleted Bills defense that allowed the Chiefs to do anything that they wanted. Yeah, the Bills defense, they've been missing a lot of guys. Kansas City, their offense has been kind of hit or miss this year. We're going to talk more about how it's their defense, honestly, where I'm more looking towards as opposed to their offense. Jake saying, season of destiny, time to dethrone the previous champs personally. Hey, you know what? I'm all for it. You got to go through the champs to be the champs, right? That's exactly what it is. I 100% agree with you there. David with the support, man. David, I appreciate you as always for checking in. Christopher saying, let's go now. Let's dominate this game and the next. And James saying, going to be a challenge. The Chiefs defense is no joke. Offensive line will have their hands full, keeping Jones away from the Mars. Let's talk about this point here. Chiefs defense. They've been really good for a lot of the season, and it's with guys like Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis, obviously Chris Jones, Willie Gay. They have Nick Bolton, who was actually, by proxy part of the Orlando Brown Jr. trade. So they have a lot of guys who are really balling out for them. And in terms of their actual stats this season, just from a holistic defensive perspective, they're the third best passing defense in the league, and they're the 24th rushing defense. It seemed like James Cook was kind of taking over that game a little bit towards the middle of it. So I don't know. It kind of feels like for Baltimore, they can exploit that. The Ravens are a team that have been at the top of the league in rushing for pretty much the entire season. Feels like with Gus Edwards, with Justice Hill, with Dalvin Cook, I really, really like that matchup for the Ravens personally, because when you look at the other side, you look at Baltimore here, let's just look at what they were doing. They were the 5th best passing offense in the league, the 3rd best rushing offense in the league. They had the top pass defense in the league, but then 25th against the run. But obviously in the playoffs here, Houston, they shut down that Houston run game for the most part. So I think it's a good matchup for the Ravens, and we'll talk about it throughout the week as well. And yeah, KC saying Chiefs defense ain't that good against the run. I agree. It did not look good against Buffalo. It did not look good in the regular season. That, to me, is the win condition for the Ravens. If you're the Ravens, can you run the ball effectively, especially on early downs? If you can run the ball on early downs, put yourself in maybe second and 3, 2nd and 2. You go second and short situations. That will help you, and it'll help you be efficient on the offensive side of the ball if you're Baltimore as well, which I really think they can do. I think they can be efficient in this game if they can get and win the early downs and out physical Kansas City on that defensive line. Well, Ravens offensive line versus Kansas City's defensive line here. We have Eli saying this is going to be fun. This is by far the secondary rivalry, in my opinion. Yeah, if you kind of look outside the AFC North, obviously there's the stuff with Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Cincinnati. Obviously Tennessee, right? That was a big rivalry, and it still is, honestly. But Kansas City has kind of crept up as, being a pretty big rival. We knew that essentially Kansas City outside of the North was Lamar Jackson's kryptonite. Obviously, they solved that a couple years ago with Lamar flipping into the end zone and that Odafe Owe moment, right? That was, I think, the first big moment of Odafe Owe's career here. But I think for me, I agree with here, James, time of possession will be key. Keep Mahomes on the sideline as much as possible. And we saw a perfect marriage, I think, of what this Ravens offense wanted to be against Houston in the second half. Because early in the season, it wasn't really Todd Monken's offense. They were still running a lot of Greg Roman concepts and kind of figuring out where they can implement some of Todd Monken's stuff. And then towards the end of the season, by the end of the season, it was Todd Monken's offense. But what you want to do if you're the Ravens is you want to be efficient in scoring touchdowns, but also you want to hold the ball enough so that, what's the best defense? It's a good offense. And the best offense is a good defense. To be able to keep your opponent on the sideline, that to me is a very big key. I agree with you there. Danny's saying what makes me nervous is that we haven't played them this year yet. I guess we'll have to show them who's the number 1 team in the league. This is interesting, and I'm going to talk about this throughout the week on Locked On Ravens during our weekday episodes, is what's the advantage for teams that have played against the Ravens versus haven't played against the Ravens? Where is the advantage and where is the disadvantage in that? And specifically, I think it's why Lamar is so good against NFC teams in particular, because they just don't have a read on him. And Kansas City and Lamar have played. They played, 4 times in the first 4 years that Lamar was in the league, or maybe 3 times. I can't remember the exact number. They played a lot early in Lamar's career. But it's a different Chiefs team, and obviously it's a different Ravens team now too, where I think the Chiefs defense is what I'm more worried about as opposed to the Chiefs offense. I mean, they have Travis Kelce. He had a good game. Rashee Rice has kind of been their big wide receiver 1 this year, but Mecole Hardman doesn't scare me. Obviously, had that mistake in the Bills game. Kadarius Toney's been a disaster. Right? He didn't play in this one, obviously, but Justin Watson and Sky Moore, those guys don't scare me. And if the Ravens get Marlon Humphrey back this upcoming week, I mean, I think to me, it just makes it so good for the Ravens, where what I prefer, we did an episode with Rocco DeSangro for today in the morning. It was a bonus episode. We talked about if we would have preferred Buffalo or Kansas City, and we both said Buffalo. We both said that with just the way the Bills are hot and cold, when they're hot, they're on, but when they're cold, it's terrible. And the Chiefs dropped a couple of big key Josh Allen turnovers late in that game, and that was kind of what I was talking about. And at this point, David, stay locked in. I 100% agree. Cozy Frog saying it'll be the Ravens 49ers. Super Bowl colors don't lie. Yeah, that's been circulating for how long now? A couple months at this point with the Super Bowl colors. It's red and purple this year, and it's been the same for the past 2 seasons. So, yeah, I've seen that all over the place. McJack saying, I like the matchup, just the nerves that come with the situation. I mean, this is the biggest game in Baltimore franchise history, well, Ravens franchise history in terms of hosting a game. We can probably be realistic and say that the Super Bowl isn't coming to Baltimore anytime soon, unfortunately. So the AFC Championship is the pinnacle of the pinnacles here for the Ravens. And look, the atmosphere we'll talk about in the final part of the show, you thought this past week with the Texans, you thought that was electric? I mean, whole different ball game this week in terms of Baltimore and what the energy is going to be like this week. So I'm really, really, really excited. I think you look at a couple other things too. We'll talk about one more thing before we get into our first break here. when you look at what Kansas City did on the offensive side of the ball, the one other thing you have to look at is in the run game, Isaiah Pacheco, he is probably you talk about angry runs, he is probably the angriest runner this league has ever seen this year. And he's been great for him. He's been really, really good. He's averaged 4.6 yards per carry for them at almost 1,000 yards this season, 7 touchdowns. You have to work to bring him down. The key players you have to look at on Kansas City's offense, it's 3 guys. For Houston, we were talking about Nico Collins, right? Don't let Nico beat you. Don't let Nico beat you. For the Chiefs, it's don't let Pacheco beat you. Don't let Rashee Rice beat you. And don't let Travis Kelce beat you. And obviously Mahomes too, right? But go let a guy like Sky Moore beat you or McCole Hardman, right? Go let those guys beat you. To me, I think that is the key because Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's not scaring me, right? Richie James, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, they're not scaring me. So at this point, Baltimore has an opportunity. I think they have the better roster. I think they are the better team, but obviously you have to go out there and execute at a really high level. So coming up in the second part of the show, we'll continue talking about how Baltimore and Kansas City match up with each other. Also diving into a bit more about the Ravens, their divisional win, and what we can take away from that as we move into the AFC Championship game. A lot still to get to here on Locked On Ravens instant reaction episode. Do not go anywhere. Still, again, a ton to talk about. First, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. And starting the new year, we're obviously almost done with January now. Every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make that will take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn's been great. I've had a ton of great experiences on there, networking, connecting, helping people find jobs. LinkedIn is a really great place. Plus, LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has the best network of more than a billion professionals, which make it the best place to hire. Hiring's really easy to do when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours. And in 2024, maybe you want to achieve some goals, right? The right team member could be able to help you do that. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one, delivering quality hires to leading competitors. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We're back, our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Sunday night. Leading up into Monday, we now officially know Baltimore Ravens defeat the Houston Texans. On Saturday, they're facing off against Taylor Swift and those Kansas City Chiefs coming to town Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern time when the AFC Championship game kicks off. Really exciting. Really, really exciting. And I think what a good storyline, right? Not the Taylor stuff is one thing, right? That I guess we could talk about it a little bit coming up. But the Chiefs had been Lamar's kryptonite, as I talked about earlier in the show, outside of, I guess, Pittsburgh, right? I guess Pittsburgh's defense has been kind of iffy for Lamar over the course of his career. But it was always, right, the first couple of years of Lamar's career, it's, can he finally get over the Patrick Mahomes hump? Can he finally beat Mahomes? And this is so poetic. Got to go through the champs to be the champs. And it's, I think, a storyline that, I think the NFL is pretty happy that they got this. I see Joey Mart saying, was hoping for the Bills, but this is a great matchup. Yeah, I would have preferred Buffalo, but if I'm the Ravens, I'm not scared of anybody, right? I'm not scared of Mahomes. I'm not scared of the Chiefs. This Chiefs team is different. There's no Tyreek on this team, hasn't been for a couple of years. And we're kind of seeing Mahomes go through what Lamar went through with his receivers a little bit, where he kind of has to make stuff happen and do stuff on his own. So that's going to be interesting to see as well. B. James checking in saying, let's go. I'm locked in and locked on. Hey, that's what I'm talking about, B. James. Appreciate you tuning in. Joey Mart saying, do you think that Mark Andrews gets activated? I'm not a doctor, but in my non-medical professional opinion, I will say that this is the week he does. And the reason I say that is because we've seen the Ravens take this approach a couple of times with their players already this season, where they've had guys return to practice and then practice either limited or full. I think it was, limited, full last week. And they held guys out. Like Marcus Williams came back and he practiced, and then they held him out, and then he came back the next week. They did it with, was it Ronnie Stanley? It was somebody else, but they did it with somebody else too. Maybe it was, Ronnie Stanley or somebody. But I think that timeline is kind of what we're looking at for Mark Andrews, where he practices, gets his legs back under him, and then if he throws together 3 full practices this week, I would assume he would throw together at least 2. Maybe they give him a rest day. It would make sense if they were to bring him back. And probably wouldn't be, Mark Andrews playing all these snaps. Obviously, Isaiah Likely's balling out too. So I think you got to find a way to utilize both of them. But when Andrews is on the field, the Ravens are a better football team. And that's what I would say. So I would say in my non-medical opinion, I'll say Mark Andrews comes back this week, which would be so him coming out to that crowd in M&T at the championship, man, I want to see it. I want to see that bad. Don Royale saying, I'm scared. Look, there are there's that nervous energy, right? I 100% agree. There is some of that nervous energy. But to me, there's less this week because I think for me, it was just, can the Ravens get over the rust hump, the divisional round hump? They did it. And they're not going to come out, in my opinion, as slow as they did against Houston because they've now shed that rust. And I think it's going to be a different story this time around. James saying Joe Tooney suffered an injury tonight. Oh, I was kind of flipping back and forth between the game. That'll be something to keep an eye on for this week. Yeah, it will. Tooney's really, really good. And their offensive line has some players on it, especially Creed Humphrey, we know, and Tooney's awesome. So that's going to be good. Jase, what a game it'll be. It'll be historic. I hope so. That Bills-Chiefs game was really, really good. It's, again, seemed like both teams wanted to win it early, and then nobody wanted to win it at the end. And I guess if you wanted to say the Chiefs kind of got it handed to them from the Bills late in the game with that Tyler Bass miss. So that to me is going to be an interesting part of it. Don saying, is the NFL scripted for Taylor Swift? I hope not. I hope this is where the Taylor Swift train ends, right? Taylor Swift, it's an interesting dynamic. The NFL has obviously benefited a ton from her being involved with Travis Kelce and that whole thing. I don't think her presence has nothing to do with how Kelce is playing or how the Chiefs are doing. That stuff is very superstitious, and I'm a superstitious person, but I don't believe in all that. But hopefully the Taylor Swift party ends this weekend. The NFL party, at least. She can, music-wise, we have to call her what it is. She's been one of the most successful musicians we've seen. But hopefully the NFL train for her ends this week. Nicholas saying, did you catch what Boomer Esiason said? Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. I strongly have to disagree with you as Lamar Jackson isn't already locked in already. Yeah, I mean, at this point, Lamar Jackson is the best. He's playing like the best quarterback in the league. You can't really dispute that. I mean, who else would you take over Lamar right now? I'm not taking Mahomes over Lamar. I'm not taking Allen. I'm not taking Stroud or Purdy or, any of that. I'm taking Lamar. Lamar's the guy who's playing the best right now. And even if he threw for 152 passing yards against the Texans, the Ravens won by 24. Doesn't matter how many yards he passes for. Doesn't matter how many passing touchdowns he has. He doesn't have to throw for 300 yards a game. He doesn't have to throw for 4 passing touchdowns a game. The Ravens, just how good he is and how much attention he has around him, Baltimore wins those games like that because, one, it's a group effort. It's not just Lamar. But two, he is so good that he can impact the game in so many different ways. And the box score doesn't have to reflect it. That's just what it is for him, which is really, really good. Don saying Pacheco scared the run defense. I mean, Pacheco, to me, I think the way that Michael Pierce played, the way that Matabike played, Travis Jones, Jadeveon Clowney, Baltimore was playing with energy in that Houston game. And Houston's run game was not great coming into it. I know that, again, a lot of that was skewed based off of Dameon Pierce versus Devin Singletary. Pacheco's really good, and he's really, really, really – I mean, again, I think he's the hardest runner in the league, honestly. So they're going to have to stop that and do a good job at it. Danny's saying, as far as atmosphere, the flock need to show up and shout louder than those Swifties. Let's go, Ravens. Yeah, I don't know how many Swifties we'll get at the game, but I think that the Chiefs turnout is going to be interesting to look at, especially when you're looking at a lot of things where the Ravens fans had that place packed up and just loud as it could be. The pre-snap penalties were key for the Ravens and everything that's going on for them. Baltimore has so much that is going in their direction and in their favor that I don't really see what's going on in terms of what Baltimore has versus what Kansas City has. Baltimore's crowd is really, really good. And we saw that, right? We saw them do their job. In Houston, maybe they string together a couple more drives if, maybe there's not a pre-snap penalty here or a pre-snap penalty there. So we're going to see what happens with that. Let's see. Eli saying, I think our linebackers can take care of Pacheco. Yeah, physicality of Roquan and Patrick Queen is going to be key, and their sideline-to-sideline speed will also help a ton. Emil saying, what's up, Emil? Puerto Rico, repping always. And yeah, if you tell me where you're checking in from here on Locked On Ravens. I am always curious to see where everybody's tuning in from. So we got Puerto Rico with Emil right there. I'm curious to see where everybody's tuning in from as well. James saying Ravens held the ball for over 37 minutes against Houston. Lamar's the reason our run offense works so well, so he doesn't have to throw over 300 yards. Yeah, I mean, the Ravens run offense has been the bread and butter. I think, again, everything with Todd Monken coming in was, they're going to run the ball, but they're not going to run it as much as Greg Roman did. They're just going to throw the ball a ton, and that's what it's going to be for them. But their whole plan, and I've said this so many, if you've been listening to me every day here on Locked On Ravens, you've heard me say it before, where Baltimore was always going to be a run-first team. The reason to bring in Todd Monken was to figure out how they can keep Greg Roman's concepts, but then add the creativity of Monken, because the run game was awesome, but the pass game just wasn't growing. And now we're seeing the marriage of the run game and the pass game. And to me, it's really, really cool, because this is what we've been envisioning. We've been envisioning this for years, to say, give Lamar the weapons, give Lamar the offense, and that's what it's going to be. And it has been, they were finding their stride over the first couple of months, right? I'm not here to say that they've been perfect the entire season, but they're peaking at the right time. You don't want to peak in October. You don't want to peak in November. This is when you want to peak. And obviously the pinnacle of that is in the Super Bowl, hopefully 2 weeks from now for the Ravens, or I guess 3 at this point. We're a little under 3 to go before that one. So it's going to be really exciting and really interesting. It's a great matchup for the Ravens. I think the Chiefs also have some advantages, but I think the Ravens have much more. Mainly, they have one Lamar Jackson, in Kansas City does not. But there's a pretty dang good quarterback on the Chiefs side, too. And coming up, we'll talk about the Lamar and Mahomes matchup. And I know they're not playing each other on the field, right? But it's a storyline. It always is going to be with those two guys. Stay tuned. We still have a lot to talk about here on this live instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And the NFL regular season is wrapping up. There's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. On a place of $5 bet, that's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app's super easy to use, too, and there's so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explorer tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So, I mean, for the Ravens, if you bet on FanDuel for the game on Saturday, you pick the Ravens outright, you probably won some money there, right? And maybe you picked some anytime touchdowns. You maybe parlayed Isaiah Likely anytime touchdown, Nelson Aguilar anytime touchdown. That probably won you a little bit of money over on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. We're back. Our final segment, Locked On Ravens, live instant reaction edition on Sunday night. Kevin Oestreicher talking with you here about the Ravens and Chiefs. They're going to be mashing up in the AFC Championship game Sunday, 3 o'clock Eastern time at M&T Bank Stadium. Atmosphere is going to be crazy. I appreciate everybody for tuning in here tonight on Locked On Ravens. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow with another episode breaking down Kansas City in even more detail. We're going to get really intricate and really in detail on the matchup. So be sure to check out all that. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube as well. Follow along in audio form. Again, when I started this recording, we were about 15 subs away from 6,000, which is such an incredible journey for me here on YouTube, and also obviously audio form. It's been a great journey over there too. Incredible. Started audio form up first, a couple years later, moved into video, and now it's the same show, both audio and video. You can hit a like on the YouTube as well. And if you want to check out these bonus live edition episodes live, you turn notifications on YouTube, and that'll really help out. But of course, if you miss it, you can listen to it after the fact in audio form or the replay in video form. I see we got a couple people checking in here from Charleston. We see Joey in Charleston, South Carolina, Kale in Fargo, North Dakota. We got a lot of people checking in here. Oh, I see Frank from Canada, Quebec, Canada. I appreciate you tuning in, Frank. We got a lot of nice people in here and a lot of great chatters who have been giving us content all night here. And that's one of my favorite parts of these live shows, is being able to engage in the chat and then kind of talk through some things and talk through people's thoughts here. And I see Mick Jack saying, coming from Alabama, he's saying the scramble's the only thing that gets him nervous. And yeah, Mahomes has that scramble ability, but he and Josh Allen are two very different runners. And I think, to me, Josh Allen is the bigger run threat. I think Mahomes, both Allen and Mahomes can make plays on the run, but we've seen that Mahomes magic happen so often, right? We've seen it happen so often, where I think that's kind of what Jack's saying here with the scramble. Christopher saying, you think this defense can stop our offense? I mean, no. I don't think any defense, with the way the Ravens offense was cooking, with the way that they look, the thing that impressed me the most about the Ravens and the way that they responded was the fact that they got punched in the mouth by Houston early. They got punched in the mouth at the end of that first half. What didn't they do in 2019? They didn't respond. They kind of laid down. They responded They responded to the Texans hitting them in the mouth, and they didn't allow a single point in the second half, but they put up 17 in the fourth, 7 in the third. I mean, they outscored the Texans 24-0 in the second half because they know that this is their time. They know that this is it. This is it. If you win this game, if you're the Ravens, you go to the Super Bowl and have a chance to go 3-0 in the big game, bring the third championship back to the Ravens organization since they came into the league in 1996 and obviously won it for the first time back in 2000. So it's going to be really interesting to see the matchup. And I don't know. I feel like it's interesting. Frank, I appreciate the support. Same thing for you, Joey. I appreciate your comments here. I love the content and you're the best. It means a lot to me. All those comments, it really does. B. James saying we're fine. The Ravens are. I agree. Again, it shouldn't be, whether it was the Bills or the Chiefs, both good teams, but they're not playing like the Ravens are playing right now. I mean, I've said this throughout the course of the last maybe 2.5 months. It just feels like this is the Ravens' year. Now, they have to earn it. Just because I say it's the Ravens' year doesn't mean that they're going to win the Super Bowl. If they have a bad game, that's not earning it. You got to be able to earn it. But to me, the Kansas City offense does not put fear in my heart as much as it used to, right? With Tyreek Hill, with the Travis Kelce, it just feels like they've taken a step back. And part of that is lack of receiving weapons from Mahomes. Travis Kelce's had a down year. There have been a lot of things that have gone against Kansas City. It's the defense for me now. For me, it's the defense, and I've said it throughout the entire show. It's the defense that I think you got to be more worried about if you're the Ravens. But even so, it's not like you got to be worried about it. It's just I worry about that more than I do the Chiefs offense personally. B. James saying the Ravens are fine. They've stepped up at every challenge this season, and we're watching the same things. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, B. James, because the Ravens are the test, right? Every single time we talked about the Ravens after the bye week, it was, well, the Rams are a tough team, right? The Ravens come out of the bye. This is going to be a test for them. They passed that. Honestly, in my opinion, that was the best one of the season for them. Then you got to go play Jacksonville prime time. Jacksonville, I think they were struggling, but still, that was a good football team at the time. They just were kind of falling off at that point. They won that game. Then you got to go play San Francisco on Christmas. Best team in the league, they called San Francisco. Brock Purdy over Lamar for MVP. They passed that test. Miami, arguably the second best team in the AFC at the time. They passed that test with flying colors. The Ravens are the test. They are the best team in the NFL. To me, it's not really a debate about that. So we're going to see what happens, but I think that Baltimore, I'm picking them. I'm just telling you right now, they have not done anything for me to pick against them. If there's some freak injury in practice, maybe something changes. Obviously, knock on wood, that does not happen. But the Ravens, to me, I'm picking them all week. You're going to hear that from me here on Locked On Ravens. Tony saying, much love from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I appreciate you tuning in, Tony. And hey, if you're a Michigan fan, I don't know if you are, but if you're a Michigan fan, one Harbaugh won it over there. Hopefully the next Harbaugh wins it here, as we're talking about Jim versus John. James, I appreciate you. We are all in this together. Oh, I see we got Brazil in here. I appreciate you tuning in, Campos. That means a lot to me, checking in from abroad there. Joey saying Rowan Lamar will keep us locked in. South Florida boys will get it done. Yeah, I agree. Jake saying Lamar has been a vocal leader this year, got the team back up at halftime last week. He's going to have everyone locked in for this game. Might be my favorite Lamar answer ever. There are a couple I really love, but him being asked, oh, well, Lamar, who talked in the locker room? He said, me. It was me. I did it. He's like, well, it's inappropriate to say what I said. And he didn't actually reveal it, but you saw the look. You and I, we all saw the look that Lamar had on his face. He went into the locker room early at halftime. The Ravens, again, they got punched in the mouth by Houston at the end of that first half. And they came out. One of the things I've loved about Todd Monken and Todd Monken and Mike McDonald. I was going to talk about Greg Roman, but Todd Monken and Mike McDonald, their second half adjustments have been awesome. Greg Roman's second half adjustments were not awesome. They were not. So at the end of the day, the Ravens play 60 minutes. Todd Monken said as much. He said he's very happy the Ravens play 60 minutes, not 30. And I agree with him. I don't know how that game would end if it went to overtime and it was kind of that high-pressure situation. But it was high pressure for them to come out. They responded really well. And it just feels like they're so locked in, and Lamar is so locked in playing at such a high level, even though Kansas City's defense is really good, right? Even though the offense with Mahomes and Kelce, they can make stuff happen. The Ravens are just on a different level than every other team right now. So that's kind of what it is. Tyler saying Ravens going to take out the Chiefs. This is who we wanted. Yeah, whether you wanted the Chiefs or the Bills, nobody really scares me. Tony, I'm from Maryland, but yeah, I was happy for Michigan. hopefully both Harbaugh brothers win it. Hopefully that's the case. Christopher saying, I hate playing Kansas City because you have to beat the refs also. I'm curious to see who the actual crew is. I know there's an account on social media that does a really good job of breaking down the ref matchups and home teams versus away teams. But look, if there's a quote-unquote ref advantage for the Chiefs, Ravens fans have to make the home field advantage that much better. And Houston's a young team. Do I expect Kansas City to have that many pre-snap penalties? I don't. But Juwan Taylor has been a guy who's been nationally scrutinized for his false starts all season. So that's an area of advantage. If he can't hear the snap count, you might be getting a few Juwan Taylor penalties in this game. He, I think, is the most penalized player in the league, or one of them at least, one of the most penalized players in the league. So that's a really big advantage as well. Joey saying Dalvin, 21-yard run just at the beginning. Yeah, Dalvin's role is going to be big. I think this was a week to kind of get his legs under him. And I think it actually helped that the Ravens are winning by so much and they could kind of throw it to garbage time, because I think at that point, you kind of give Dalvin the situations and low pressure saying, hey, this is how we're going to do things. They can coach things up during the week, and he'll be even more ready to go this week as well. So we'll see what ends up happening, but I'm really excited for this matchup. I think, again, got to beat the champs to be the champs. That's the thing I'll be saying all week. And for Baltimore, they certainly have a tough matchup ahead, but I think it's a good one for them overall. So that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. I appreciate you tuning in. That's all I have for you. I see Ravens 786 be more checking in at the end saying he's confident with the team. I salute you too, Ravens 76 be more. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be coming right back here at you tomorrow with another episode of Locked On Ravens. Again, getting into much more detail about how Baltimore matches up with Kansas City and what we can take away from the divisional round as Baltimore heads into the AFC Championship game. Electric time coming up. Electric week of content here on Locked On Ravens. Be sure to be a part of it. Subscribe, follow along. Tons of great stuff coming. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.